Thanks for the privilege of your time. This is the SALVANT report. We welcome the listeners of WOTS 1220 Kissimmee, Orlando, Radio Delta 88.9 Long Island, New York, WSUV 960 AM on the world beat. My name is LEGRAND PARISIEN SALVANT. The world is on fire. The world is out of balance. The world is corrupt. To help you understand the world we live in, the SALVANT report has garnered information from 3 sources using their recent reports to shed light on multiple events happening around the world. We invite you to Google Transparency International, International Rescue Commission, and the Atlas. And the title of our program, what we're going to see today, is the Atlas of Impunity, a People's Perspective 2024. The Atlas of Impunity is a joint effort by David Miliband, who is the president of the International Rescue Commission and Eurasia Group's geostrategy team. And they put out this report. And we're going to talk about it, review it, analyze it, and share with you the information. Because these guys think it is better to look the world through the lenses of impunity, because they think that the lens of impunity aptly captures the multidimensional nature of global challenges. The world is on fire. The world is out of balance. The world is corrupt. First of all, we can see that the U.S. has lost its moral authority. The U.S. cannot dictate anything to any country. We got the example of Israel and Palestinians. The war is going on, and instead of say, halt Elah, stop it, let's have a ceasefire, on the contrary, Benjamin Netanyahu, as a war criminal, is committing acts of genocide in Gaza, and he has received the carte blanche from the White House to get to the final solution. The U.S. has lost its moral authority, and it cannot find a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. You just need to remember that Russia invaded Ukraine February 24th, 2022. The European democracies, Europe in general, all these democracies, they have lost also their moral authority. Because together, all these countries, they cannot put a stop to the worst conflict since 1945 on their soil. The church has lost its moral authority, cannot dictate anything to the world, because the church has allowed the world to get in the church instead of the church going in the world to make changes. The world is on fire. You must know that. You must be aware of that. The world is out of balance. The world is corrupt. The world is out of balance according to the 2025 emergency watch list of the International Rescue Committee. We have 10 worst conflict going on right now that they talk about. But in 2023, at the end of the 2023, we have 59 conflicts worldwide. And now it may be 61, 62. The International Rescue Committee talked to us about this war out of balance by naming some of the conflicts. Sudan, the occupied Palestinian territory, which Benjamin Netanyahu, as a war criminal, just get the carte blanche from the White House or the final solution. We got Myanmar, we got Syria, we got South Sudan, Lebanon, Burkina Faso, Haiti, Mali, and Somalia. The 10 worst. And whatever they do, and they said the only thing, it's based on the humanitarian imperative that they have, and everything that they do at the International Rescue Committee is to save life where we must and to improve life where we can. So the International Rescue Committee telling us what now in the world today. The absolute number are crushing. 305 million people in humanitarian need. 305 million. And they said they have 120 million people on the run from conflict and natural disaster. And they say that more than ever before. More than 7 out of 10 people in the greatest need worldwide, whether measured by humanitarian need, food insecurity, or conflict, and these 120 million live in these 10 countries that I just named a while ago. Sudan, occupied Palestinian territory that's in Gaza, Myanmar, Syria, South Sudan, Lebanon, Haiti, Mali, Somalia, and Burkina Faso. And these guys said for them, the statistics are overwhelming. And they have organized their report around 4 imbalances that they see driving all the crises around the world. The world is on fire. The world is out of balance. What they see, the 4 imbalances: more conflict, less diplomacy. And when we have less diplomacy, you're going to have conflict, because we're supposed to solve our problem through communication, to diplomacy. That's the first one. There's a more attack on civilian, fewer consequences. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, where we're going to see these guys, whether you in Israel, destruction of Gaza, 95 or 98% of the structure, kindergarten, elementary school, hospital, they just obliterate everything. Or we know that they have laws and norms against war crime. So in a world where they do not mean anything, is a world in danger of spinning out of control. That's what it is. More attacks on civilians, fewer consequences. A report that came out from Harvard, it's a professor, he's an Israeli. It's from Israel. On January 6th, he's a Harvard professor. Meaning that 400,000 Palestinian or Gazian has been killed or disappeared or under the robots. 400,000. And there is no consequences for Benjamin Netanyahu, this war criminal, for his action. So if we have laws and norms against war crime and they do not apply, they don't mean anything, what are you expecting? That the world is out of control. More carbon emission, inadequate climate crisis action. We don't take any action. We have the Republicans from the Republican cult that don't even believe in 4 seasons, let alone climate change. And the last imbalance, it's more wealth accumulation and less poverty alleviation. And we can see that in America, that the US, that the new American administration has started his war against poor people on July 4th when the president signed into law his budget. His beautiful bill. The world is on fire. The world is out of balance. The world is corrupt. And since we talk about impunity, and you know impunity thrives in darkness, impunity and corruption always works hand in hand. That's what we come and pull that organization, Transparency International, which is a global movement working in more than 100 countries to end the injustice of corruption. What they do, they focus on issues with the greatest impact on people's life and hold the powerful to account for the common good. And they do that through their advocacy, campaigning and research, and they expose the system and network that enable corruption to thrive, demanding greater transparency, that's the name, and integrity in all areas of public life. And since 1995, that's what Transparency International is working on, and the injustice of corruption. And they said their vision is a world in which government, politics, business, civil society, and the daily lives of people are free of corruption. And corruption in any country erodes trust. Corruption weakens democracy. Corruption hampers economic development and further exacerbates inequality, poverty, social division, and the environmental crisis. And for Transparency International, we have some costs when it comes to corruption. What are the costs of corruption? You have the political cost of corruption because it affects your freedom and the rule of law. We have the social cost of corruption, because your participation and even your trust in government is not there anymore. And we're not even talking yet about the environmental cost. When you get the money in order to use it for a sustainable future, for a healthy environment, when the people are stealing the money, your chance for a healthy environment and a sustainable future disappears. And corruption have also some economic costs, because the money should have been invested instead of being stolen. Therefore, your opportunity to build and grow wealth is no longer there. So that's why we have with corruption. Alors, how are we going to end that? Transparency International told us that in order to end corruption, we must first understand it. And that's the reason why it is a duty for you to do your homework as a citizen and to go and Google Transparency International and learn about what they're doing and learn about corruption. Because they analyze the causes of corruption, its impact, and the most effective strategies to eradicate it. Therefore, every year they get out what they call the Corruption Perception Index, CPI, where the CPI is the leading global ranking of public sector corruption. And so they started doing that since 1995. In order for you to understand corruption, you must understand it. So I'm sorry. In order for you to work on ending corruption, you must understand it. So I invite you to go and Google Transparency International and see the CPI for 2024, where you have all the countries being rated, being ranked to the degree, to the level of corruption going on in that country. Because corruptions affect billions of people worldwide, destroying lives, undermining human rights, and exacerbating global crisis. So it is to your advantage, it is your duty to understand corruption. No nation is immune to this problem. No nation is immune to this problem. And ignoring corruption comes at a cost we can no longer afford. No nation, no country is immune to this problem. And if you ignore corruption, it comes at a cost. And the cost we can no longer afford. And in order for corruption to strive to, you have the impunity. Impunity thrives in darkness. Now, what is impunity? Impunity is the exercise of power without accountability. In its clearest form, it is the commission of crimes without punishment. While the chief perpetrators of impunity are often a country's most powerful actors, its victims are generally ordinary people. Impunity is the commission of crimes without punishment. If people, just like you saw in Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu dropping bombs on hospital, on high school, Vladimir Putin doing the same thing in Ukraine, and we have the laws against war crime. We got norms, and they are not respected. So you end up with a world spinning out of control, a world out of balance, a world on fire. That's it. And now we're living in a world where the laws of war prove inadequate to protect civilian population. International sponsorship of fighting was far more effective than support for peacemaking. We got a lot of countries, just like the US, supporting Israel, destroying Gaza. And now they're going for the final solution. You have the US supporting and financing Ukraine to fight. But we spend more time with sponsoring fighting than support for peacemaking. What about the US? You remember I talked to you at the beginning that the US has lost its moral authority, because what now you have a president who is using his official powers to punish his enemies. Why here in the US? So, just like the lady said, she was in Gaza. And he said, I didn't ever think they could bomb a hospital. Not a hospital. You would think it's a safe place. Same thing that happened in June 2021 in Syria. Northern Syria, where these people have a bomb the Al-Shifa hospital in northern Syria. What happened to the laws? What happened to the norms? There are laws and norms against war crime. But if this happened with no consequences, it's impunity. What can you expect? It's only a world spinning out of control. The Atlas of Impunity, however, they put that report out in February 2023. That was the first report. And they put a second report on 2024. And you go into check and see that the great democracies didn't do great at all. And the dimension that they use to rank countries about their impunities, it's number one, unaccountable governance. Number two, conflict and violence. Number three, abuse of human rights. Number four, economic exploitation. And number five, environmental degradation. So, impunity is the exercise of power without accountability. And impunity thrives when the imbalance of power is so great that the powerful think they do not have to follow the rules. And I'm going to repeat that because that's exactly what happened right now in America. Who is the leader of the free world? America was supposed next year celebrate its 250 years of democratic experiences. It said impunity strive when the imbalance of power. We have 3 branches of government. But we can see that Congress is out. Only the judiciary, which is putting itself in as an obstacle to the president. Impunity thrives when the imbalance of power is so great that the powerful think they do not have to follow the rules. And we get to that old notion that we heard very often. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So now to look at the world, and I like it, with the Atlas of Impunity, it said there are many analytical frames for understanding global affairs. Yes, many analytical frames. Democracy versus autocracy. East versus West. Global North versus global South. Or right wing versus left wing. But they said, for what's happening in the world now, they think, look at the world between through the frame of impunity versus accountability, can tell us more about what is happening in the world right now. When we look at the world through the frame of impunity versus accountability. It's better to do that like this. And they said the notion of impunity and accountability, and with them the notion of justice and community, can be found in the philosophical, moral, and political writings of a range of societies, which make it easier to look at the world we live in right now. A world on fire, a world out of balance, a world very corrupt. So, what are these dimensions? What are the measurements? How can they measure impunity across these 5 dimensions that I mentioned a while ago? When you come to the unaccountable governance, they're going to look for respect for the rule of law and responsiveness to citizens. When we look at abuse of human rights, which is being done everywhere, look at Gaza, look at Ukraine, look at Sudan, look at Haiti, look at Mali, all these places, human rights are being abused. In the US, the greatest democracy, you have that war against migrants. No due process. You have people snatched on the street, people with a mask people, unmarked cars, snatch them, and the next thing they find them in a country that they cannot even spell it. As the American Gestapo on the street via ICE agent. Abuse of human rights. Are these countries adhere to international human rights treaties and use of violence for political coercion? Abuse of human rights. That the second dimension that they are using, the Atlas of Impunity are using to check on the countries. Instead of democracy versus autocracy, instead of the East versus West, instead of right wing versus left wing, they're looking via impunity and accountability. The third one is the economics exploitation. The budget law that just passed in America, that the president signed on July 4th of all other days, the days with Independence Day. It's a war against poor people. 4% of their resources are going to be taken away from them to give to the wealthy, to the rich. Economic exploitation. They're looking at corruption, poor treatment of workers, and relationship between economic status and civil and political liberties. That's how we can measure impunity across these 5 dimensions. The 4th dimension is conflict and violence. We have 61 conflicts around the world. What now, what I'm speaking to you while you're listening to me? What kind of countries participating? A participation in conflict abroad. And levels of violence within the country. And there are different kind of level of violence. Political violence, physical violence, verbal violence, all kinds. If you measure impunity via these lenses, via this dimension, what you're going to find? And in the report, the Atlas of Impunity, the great democracy didn't do good. They didn't do great. They didn't do great. And lastly, they measure impunity via environmental degradation. What is the contribution to the climate crisis? If you take the US, there were the agreement, the Paris Agreement. In 2018, the president just trashed it. Mr. Joe Biden, knowing the importance of that, just like to fight a climate change, re-enroll, re-register, just get back on track on the Paris Agreement. And now the new president, just America, get out of that, because we don't believe in climate change. There is no climate crisis. Resource depletion and pollution. This is that dimension. We talk about the environmental degradation. What is that country contribution to the climate crisis, to the resource depletion, or pollution? This guy went through and they show us that all this data they've accumulated and garnered, the data highlights the significant level of impunity that exists around the world in this 5 dimension, and the value of using impunity as a lens for tracking such abuses. Looking at the world through the lenses of impunity. You Haitian listening to me, in the new report, the Atlas of Impunity 2024, a people's perspective, we can think about home when we look at the score. With a score of 3.06, Haiti is the country with the greatest impunity in Latin America, ranking 12 worldwide in the 2024 Atlas. Let me repeat that for my Asian brothers and sisters. With a score of 3.06, Haiti is the country with the greatest impunity in Latin America, ranking 12 worldwide in the 2024 Atlas. And they said the people of Haiti have endured a continued deterioration in their country's impunity level over the past 5 years, driven primarily by an escalating political conflict and violence. Furthermore, Haiti's unaccountable governance score worsened following the collapse of the national government last April, when former Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned after criminal groups denied his return to the country. Impunity and corruption hand in hand in Haiti. On that year, that's for the level of impunity, but for the corruption, it went down, it's worsened. Because you have impunity, you got corruption. Because we said at the beginning that impunity is the commission of crimes without punishment. The terrorists, the gangs, killing people, raping young girls, raping women, the politician stealing the money from the public funds, and no punishment. That's what we call impunity. Impunity thrives also in darkness. We must understand it in order to put an end to it, and we must ask for transparency. Transparency is the key, or at least one step toward solving that problem. That's what Transparency International talk about it. It demands greater transparency. And that's the name, Transparency International. With the cost of corruption, but transparency, it's only the first step to curbing corruption. Only the first step. Because this guy told us that they have learned over 25 years of experience that corruption can only be kept in check if representatives from government, business, and civil society work together for the common good. In order for us to fight corruption, we must embrace transparency. And what's transparency? It's all about knowing who, why, what, how, and how much. It means shedding light on formal and informal rules, plans, processes, and actions. Transparency helps us, the public, hold all power to account for the common good. We invite you to Google Transparency International, Google the International Rescue Committee, and Google the Atlas of Impunity, so you can put these three sources together for you to understand the world you're living in. But just like I told you at the beginning, the world is on fire, the world is out of balance, and the world is corrupt. Thank you for your time. You have a blessed weekend.